everyone, welcome to my Watercolor Fridays. Today I want to create an abstract with watercolors and just implement a few other bits and pieces. So I have a watercolor palette here. I have a couple of acrylic inks. This is a golden high flow and this is Daler-Rowney FW. And I'm going to go for kind of like a saturated, beautiful red toned brown palette with some popping yellow is what I'm thinking. And then I've got a number of different white acrylic pens and a golden one, so I'll see what works best to create some detail. And of course textural effect, I'll be using different brushes, so generally not with watercolor but with heavy body or even acrylic inks. I like to use a little spatula like this. This is a Catalyst by Princeton, a 01 mini. It's my favorite one. I just love spreading paint with it. Then I would also recommend a very moppy brush. So in this case I have a 10-0 Raven or something like a Princeton Neptune that holds a lot of water because we want to create a nice wash with it as well. And then I've got some kind of rough bristles, very dry feeling brush, and this one has a great snap, so you can just drag paint, even watercolor, and just create kind of these bristly dry brush effect. Okay, so to start off with, I'm just going to look at my colors, and I think the color I want to go with right now is this transparent red oxide. So I'll show you what it would be like painting just with like a regular brush, and regular brush I'll say is my quill brush 10-0, and it doesn't hold as much water as these two. So let me just show you an example. When I'm creating a wash, this would be a wash. And I'm going to go over it with something very, very moppy. Let's start with the Raven. So it needs to be very, very wet. And this is the difference that you get. So you can cover larger area with it without running out. And then something that's even bigger and moppier. But of course it's hard to work in small half pens like that. You would need to work off a palette. So here I can create these lovely bristly effects around when I'm moving the brush, and I'll do another one here. I can be freer with it, and it's just a lovely way of creating a wash quite quickly. So into that, after mixing a little bit of an acrylic ink straight while it's wet, I'm going to drop in this paint and see what happens. And as you can see, it spreads beautifully. So this is the acrylic ink. You can help it a little bit just by moving and inviting it into the other areas and see what happens. And I will do the same with this golden nickel acer yellow. So the first one was burnt umber, and now I'm just going to add a little bit of this yellow and help it because it's such a beautiful color once it starts moving around like so. And then I'm going to take a dry brush, kind of mess it up a bit. Just so it's less perfect. And then, because I really liked how the burnt umber looked, I'm just going to drop it back in and add a bit more water just to help it. about there. Now this is where I really like it, and I think I'd like to introduce a third color, being a very kind of bright pink. And I'm thinking of something like super bright. So let me just go through my art supplies and pick something out. So I have two things. I have a pencil and I have a wet medium. So let me try the pencil in here. I'm going to drag some of this acrylic ink out by pulling on it and mixing it together with the pencil. And then always remember just to wipe off the tips of your pencils so the film doesn't coat it. And then we have this, and I'm just going to actually see what happens if I'm just going to drop it into here. And then in some areas I'm just going to create these scribbly marks again, mixing the dark color together with the pink. So then I'm going to just invite a little bit of this paint to just move and spread a bit more. It depends how saturated you want things to be, so I'll leave it at that. The reason I'm creating in twos is so that you can experiment. I love to try something else, and sometimes if you throw everything at one piece, it ends up overworked, and I'll show you an example. So the video to that, the process video, is coming next week, and although I love the end result, there's some really interesting parts in here. Overall, it's quite overworked for my liking. So what I'd like to do now is basically create a similar thing in twos, and then I could do, for example, one page and another page if you're working in a smaller format sketchbook, or I could do on a large page both of them next to each other and try something different on both, so that they're still within the same theme, the same kind of style, but you can then figure out, did I like this more or that? Because if I combine it into one, that will be just too busy. So creating two at the same time is a good tip to try out. At this point, I like what is going on here. It's not too much. There's enough interest, there's enough detail. So I will let it dry. I might use some heat tool to speed up the process. And then we can go in and create some doodling and mark effects just to bring the piece together. While things are drying over here, I'm just going to quickly create a memo of the things that I've used so far. So it was the watercolor, transparent red oxide. And I'm going to make quite an abstract swatching feast here. So I'm not going to be creating neat swatches, because I will use this page as an experiment. So we've got that, and then we have a bit of the burnt umber. So by doing here what I'm doing, I'm creating a play field and kind of observing what would happen if those colors would blend or migrate. And that, of course, is a great way of learning something, although, you know, we already tried all of that there, but still. So that's that. And then we also had some of the pink. So you can see the color palette is rather limited. There isn't too much going on. However, it's got enough interest. Okay, so those are our swatches, and then carefully I'll write down everything down. And so far on a pencil, we used a bit of the pencil already as well. So I'm just going to also pull through some of the paint here, like I've done. Now it's time to title everything, and we have still enough space here left if we wanted to experiment further or, you know, write things down. Now what's happening here, that's another thing that we can help it. So I'm going to tilt my sketchbook and let things drip down just for extra interest. And sometimes what you can help, just drop in here a little bit of water and just have a tissue ready if things go too far. And sometimes you just need to help it a little bit. And then you've got these lovely drip effects here as well. Sometimes you can do it like so, holding your sketchbook downwards and extending your drippage. So now I have written down all the titles, and you can see this is very much different to how I usually do swatches and write things down, but changing up even something like swatches already can give you some ideas. You can, just from doing a swatch in a really abstract way, you can pull some ideas for next time. So I would recommend trying something slightly different, even if it's just a swatch. So now this page is, I think, pretty much dry. So I'm going to now look at my different pens here. And so I've got a Uni Posca. This one I don't really get on well with. It's a PC1M. So all of those types of nibs I don't really like. They tend to get caught on paper and then suddenly do a bit of a splatter, which sometimes can be a happy accident, but I do like to have a bit more control over things that I do and kind of know what to expect rather than, for example, if I want just a clean mark and then suddenly it does a splatter where I really didn't want a splatter. So nonetheless, I'm going to give it a go and just see. So I can tell you straight away, I'm not enjoying this nib at all, but I'm going to go with it, and that may help me to finish it up soon. So now I'm kind of getting thinner but also less opaque marks. So that means I have to stop quite frequently to give it a shake to bring it back to opacity. So that might interfere with your creative process. So I'm going to change up the direction of my pebbles just so they don't face the same direction. So of course on darker areas you'll see it better than on the medium or lighter. So I don't want to cover up the entire piece, but just give it a little bit of pebbleage. Just some interest. I find that with abstract art, layers is what makes it really interesting. Layers, textures, so swapping your brush to a different brush and giving it a nice kind of bristle mark. Sometimes you want just the soft wash effect. And then of course layers of different mediums, different paints. It could be even the same paint like watercolor but just in different colors. Just go for it. Okay, I think I am going to leave it at that. And I'll try a different pen on this one. So I've got actually a Molotov here. And I find that Molotovs seem to be smoother and glide better. So I'm going to mix that one up, or shake it rather up. And see if it's, oh yeah, this is much, much better. So this is so much more opaque. And of course you might like that look because now it seems to be even less opaque than first when I layered it, so that it kind of becomes a bit more translucent. So that might be the look that you're aiming for. And again, having two different versions will give me a better idea of what I like for next time. So if I wanted to create painting, not in a sketchbook, but you know, on a canvas or on a 300 GSM paper or thicker, and I wanted to know what supplies to use, I would most definitely go for this one. But that's my preference. Yours could be different. What I have realized this year is that sometimes we can not get along with an art supply, and as a YouTube influencer, we can sometimes put people off. However, it really depends how we use that art supply. So something that's not working for me might very well work for you because you want something different, right? So you do you, and you just, you know, you can see how different things are and you pick your choice. And I will leave it at that. Actually, maybe some here. And up into here as well. I think that's good. I'm just going to finish off with a bit of gold, just a little bit, and see if I like it. So let's see. I'm going to add a little bit. I think I'm going to go into here. So this nib is pretty good. No problems with that. So that's the PC3M. I do like this nib. So by placing these gold dots, I'm kind of thinking of sprinkling them around these white pebbles. And I'm going to do the same on this side, taking it into the pink a little bit, just to blend the areas. Some here, and maybe a little bit more up to in here. Maybe this, because this area here has hardly anything. So I'm just going to create an area of these dots. Make it a bit bigger maybe. I'm going to go around this area where we had a lovely transparent red oxide granulation. So I want to maintain that. Actually, I'm going to connect this area and kind of make it spread. Okay, sometimes it's hard to stop. Going back to Luminance Opera, I'm just kind of thinking of adding a little bit of this pencil, just bringing in a bit more pink in here, because I do like quite a lot of this sort of pink highlights in this piece. So I'm just going to use the pencil here instead and just create these kind of marks and doodles, sometimes going over color, but also just on the white paper because it will pop the best. And then take it down here as well, a couple of them. So this can be worked on and you can carry on with it. In fact, I really want to cover this entire part here in gold because it just looks weird stopping in the middle. So I'm just going to do that real quick, and maybe more sparse here, so less dots than in this area. And again, if I don't like it, then I will just learn that for next time and then just take a couple into this area. It's like a little confetti sprinkling. See what happens if I add it into these marks, whether it's too much. So I'm going to give you a lovely close-up. So pay attention on the transparency in this first piece when we used the Uniposca. In the PC, what was it again? PC1M. So this one. And then here, how beautifully opaque it is. And that is the Molotov 1.5 millimeters, not milliliters. And then here is the gold. So when you look straight onto it, you don't really see it, but the impact is when you get some reflection of it. And from afar, there is just a little mark there, but when the light hits it, it's just so beautiful. So there we go. That's my abstract watercolor painting. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what your sort of favorite color combo is at the moment. To be honest with you, before I started, I didn't think of the hot pink, but it happened once I laid the colors, the brown and the yellow down. I realized that I wanted something quite juicy, and previously I already worked with this color palette. I'll show you, not exactly the same thing, but something similar. So right here you can see there's some browns and yellows. I don't even remember what that was, and this hot pink. So I really liked that kind of look, and so I took it into here as well. And then there's a different yellow, different pink, almost like a fuchsia in this piece right here. So sometimes you can revisit your own work, and in fact I love doing that, just to be inspired by your own creations that you did before and you enjoyed. And so yeah, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.